千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for the sacred process in the Tao with one another. So let me talk a little bit more about the yin side of the yin and yang symbol and why it is important. And let me use examples about what we typically come across in life and how we can adjust to be more balanced for better results. In this table, which is what I call the power of the yin, I have 3 columns here. The life situation column is meant to be general categories serving as examples. The idea is that you will recognize one or more of these as something that you have recently gone through, are going through now, or will go through in the near future. So in that life situation, the common occurrence is what usually happens, especially among the people who don't really know the Tao. So they act in the same way that most other people would. And then there's the Tao approach, the rare approach of the Tao cultivator who will transcend the ordinary and create a better result. So let's look at a life situation. There's a disagreement, contention flares up. So let me ask everyone, can this happen? Yes, people fight sometimes. We know that, we see that. Now, the usual occurrence, the common occurrence that we observe from time to time is argument, shouting match, physical clash, like when a fight breaks out, violence. So this is what can happen. What we want to do as Tao cultivators, infusing more of the yin energy into the situation, is to dial down the rhetoric, let cooler heads prevail, which I understand is easier to talk about sometimes than to do. But in the Tao, the recognition always starts out that we realize when we are in the grips of intense emotions, none of us can think rationally. We are likely to say or do things we regret later on. And you probably know this from your own experience. And the other recognition is that when disagreements devolve into violence, people get hurt, things get damaged. Relationships can be broken, possibly beyond repair. Nobody really wants any of that. So the recognition of that can guide us to dial down the rhetoric, to let cooler heads prevail. The reminder for the contending parties that, hey, listen, we're in the grips of intense emotions right now. It's going to lead us down a road that we regret later on. Nobody wants that. That reminder can help you bring the temperature down. So here's another life situation, not contention, but a standoff. Neither side in the standoff is willing to back down. So there's no fight breaking out, thank goodness, but there's still a feeling of antagonistic contention, perhaps hostility. And usually what we have seen happens is that, well, everything grinds to a halt. Everybody is stuck. Neither side gets what it wants. No progress is being made. People get frustrated. It is also something we all witness from time to time. It can happen. People sometimes cannot agree. You have a deadlock. So the Tao approach, cooperation, compromise, mutual benefit, win-win. So compromise is based on mutual understanding, seeing things from the other perspective, that is, more than one perspective. The hard as opposed to the soft approach is to refuse that compromise and probably justifying the refusal as, well, I'm just showing my moral strength. I'm standing here, I'm standing tall with integrity, refusing to back down. The yin principle, the yin element calls for someone, possibly yourself, to be the peacemaker, to be the negotiator, to bring about the realization that working together can result in greater benefits from both sides. And then finding a way where it's not a zero-sum game, one side wins, the other side loses, but aligning interests. What they want is what you want, therefore bringing both sides to the same side. Pointing out the synergism of teaming up. Like, rather than to be stuck here, we can team up and do something really great. Not easy to actually implement sometimes, but it all starts with a realization that it's possible. Another real life situation that can occur, that happens all the time, is changes are common. Maybe common for the entire world, the country, the community, etc. Now, what happens usually when changes come? You know it, I know it, we've all seen it. People resist the changes. People insist on doing things the same way as before. People ask, why does it have to change? Why can't we just keep on doing what has worked for decades? Now, technology is a pretty common driving force in the change we're seeing in the world today. It is also something that many people fear because change represents the unknown. Change is outside of our comfort zone. In the Tao, we have recognitions about change. The Tao approach is to adapt, learn something new, and benefit from change because the recognition is that change is inevitable. It's a fact of life. It's going to happen, whether you want it to or not. To be alive and to thrive is, in the Tao, to be flexible and adaptable in dealing with ever-changing conditions. And people who refuse to change can justify themselves. They may say, oh, I'm old-fashioned, or I'm traditional. When you talk about being old-fashioned and traditional, it's an appeal to nostalgia or the past that has been idealized. We human beings do this a lot. We think back to the past. We don't really want to forget the bad parts. So we remember just the good old days. The past gets idealized, then we want to hang on to it. People also say that they want to rely on the tried and true. They'll say the old ways are the best ways. So how can we use the soft approach to resolve a situation like that? Well, the Tao approach is to find common ground and seek the alignment of interests. I used to know a project manager who was adept at managing change. When he was in charge of a project to make changes, he invariably ran into resistance. And he would tell me about, for instance, an elderly employee complaining, "Hey, listen, I'm doing my job just fine. What do I need to learn something new? What do I need to learn new technology?" And sometimes people would say things like, I am X number of years old, maybe 50, 60, whatever that number may be. I am fill in the blank years old. I'm like an old dog that cannot learn new tricks. That's pretty common. And then this might be an employee with a long tenure at the organization, might be someone who was well liked, trusted, trustworthy, reliable. A good employee you wouldn't want to lose. It is to your benefit then to bring him over to your side so he or she would welcome change. So the project manager who was adept at doing this, he said the key was to be clear and informative. People were much more likely to cooperate if they knew the reasons for the change. They needed to know the change wasn't just for the sake of change. It was something that the company needed. The company needed to transform itself to better adapt to changing market conditions in the world. And when the employee understood that and thinking about how they really kind of like this job, it gives them a level of compensation that lets them maintain their current lifestyle. There's a commute that they can accept. They don't want to lose the job either. Thus, desires and goals are becoming aligned. They want to keep the job. And in some cases, the project manager would get to know the elderly employee on a personal level and may say things like, "Well, you mentioned the other day that you wanted to learn more about this new technology so that you can have more in common with your grandchildren. You can spend time with them. You can use your mobile phone, your smartphone, to communicate with them. So let this be an opportunity for you to do that." Well, this is exactly what the elderly employee wanted. So again, you've got the alignment of interest. Then let's talk about another situation. Merchants promoting products and pushing sales. So the usual hard sale is the high pressure sales tactics, very aggressive. And usually this involves things like, well, this is a time limited offer. There's time urgency. This price won't last. You must act quickly. And usually coupled with misleading statements, over-promising what the product can do, over-promising on features, glossing over shortcomings. And why do these things take place? Well, because they want to maximize the short-term profitability, want to meet the sales quota, a short-term gain due to short-term focus. This has very detrimental consequences down the road. So the yin approach, infusing more of the yin, means understanding customer needs, building long-term relationships, coming in not from the perspective of increasing sales quota, but from the perspective of providing a valuable service. I have seen it work many times. It's the best long-term strategy whereas the hard sale is very short-sighted. Lastly, I want to generalize to say what happens when there's negative energy coming your way. What do I mean by negative energy? Well, it can be a personal attack. Personal attacks take so many different forms. It can be written, verbal, when someone is yelling at you, cussing you out. Even physical, it can be a physical attack as well. What usually happens when this is occurring is that for most people, shields up, getting very defensive, or sometimes even deciding to attack first, be preemptive, launch that preemptive strike. The Tao approach, not quite the same. The Tao approach is to redirect and channel the incoming energy. Now, there are multiple techniques associated with this, and they are beyond the scope of our discussion today. But let me use one example. Suppose you are encountering a verbal attack on you that is very personal. It's an accusation. It's a condemnation. How would you redirect and channel that negative energy coming your way? One way to do it, one of the techniques, is simply by asking questions for clarification. Like, are you talking about this or that? Can you be a little more specific? I'd like to understand what you're saying. Just by asking simple questions, you begin the process of redirection of that negative energy. Now, if redirect and channel sound familiar, it could be because it is the focus on the physical side of the Tai Chi teachings. Tai Chi is all about circular movements, deflecting, redirecting, channeling energy. It is very effective for those who have mastered it. So what we're talking about here right now is really the Tai Chi of everyday living, and that's the Tao. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.